It began with a silence so unnatural, so heavy, that it felt like the world itself was holding its breath. A woman who always answered her phone simply didn't. A mother who never left her children waiting, never came home. Before the headlines, before the investigators, before the horror that would shake an entire community, there was Ana Walshe, a woman whose life was defined by movement, ambition, and almost radiant optimism that seemed to push her forward like a force of nature. Ana was born in Serbia, raised with fierce determination that grew stronger after every hardship she survived. She was the kind of woman who made things happen. She built a thriving career, climbing rapidly in the Washington, D.C. real estate world. Her colleagues admired her work ethic. Her friends admired her kindness, and everyone who met her remembered her unmistakable energy, sharp, warm, and unstoppable. At home, she was the heart of everything. A devoted mother of 3 little boys aged 2, 4, and 6 at the time. A woman who called her friends just to check on them. Someone who never let a holiday pass without cooking, laughing, and filling her home with life. To the outside world, Ana seemed to have everything. A promising career, 3 beautiful sons, and a marriage that looked, at least from far away, like a partnership built on love and struggle intertwined. But behind closed doors, there were fractures. Subtle at first. Quiet. Hidden in places where only intuition could reach. Still, nobody expected the darkness that would come next. New Year's Eve 2022 was supposed to mark the beginning of a fresh chapter for her family. Ana and her husband, Brian Walshe, shared dinner home in Cohasset, Massachusetts. She had plans for the future. Plans she shared with friends. Plans she was excited about. Plans that made her smile even when she was exhausted. But something shifted that night. Something unspoken. Something chilling. Just hours later, Ana was gone. Vanished without a whisper, without a call, without a trace of the woman who never left things unfinished, who never disappeared without explanation. When co-workers tried to reach her, nothing. When her employer reported her missing days later, a strange tension settled over everything, as if the universe already knew this wasn't a simple case of someone leaving town or needing space. There was an ache in the air, a heaviness. Friends felt it. Family felt it. Even investigators, from the earliest moments, sensed that this was not a story of a woman who walked away. Because Ana wasn't the kind of woman who walked away from anything, especially not her children. Her final known moments, on the morning of January 1st, 2023, would soon become the center of a storm. A storm of questions, inconsistencies, and haunting realizations that something terrible had happened long before anyone dialed 911. A storm that would expose secrets, lies, and a darkness in her home that most people never knew existed. A storm that began with one devastating truth. Ana Walshe didn't simply go missing. Something happened to her. Something horrific. The first cracks in the story appeared almost immediately. Small at first, barely noticeable, but unmistakable to anyone who paid attention. Because when Ana vanished, the one person who should have been frantic, panicked, desperate for answers wasn't. Brian Walshe, Ana's husband, told police that everything was normal the morning she disappeared. He said she kissed him goodbye before dawn and rushed off for a sudden work emergency in Washington, D.C. He said she called a rideshare to take her to the airport. He said there was nothing unusual about the day. But the more investigators listened, the more the details felt wrong, like pieces of a puzzle that had been forced into the wrong places. There was no record of a rideshare being ordered, no flight booked, no emergency meeting scheduled, no co-workers who expected her that morning. And Ana, responsible, meticulous, always organized, left behind her phone, her car, and her belongings. People like Ana don't disappear between one heartbeat and the next. Something was off, deeply off. As police dug deeper, Brian's timeline became even stranger. He claimed he spent the entire day with his 3 sons. He insisted he never left the house. He described his schedule down to the hour, almost as if reading from a script. But surveillance footage soon told another story, a story in which Brian was seen leaving the house, wandering into stores he said he never entered, and buying items no innocent person should need in the hours after their spouse vanishes. When investigators pressed him, his explanations shifted, details blurred. The timeline changed shape, changed color, changed structure, almost as if it had never been real to begin with. Police documented everything. The inconsistencies, the contradictions, the strange calmness in a man whose wife was supposedly missing, the way he spoke about her absence as though it were an inconvenience rather than an emergency. And then there was a silence. Brian never called her phone, never contacted her workplace, never reached out to her friends to ask if they had seen her. Instead, he waited days before Ana was reported missing, waited calmly while police searched for answers, waited as if he already knew she wasn't coming back. When detectives finally confronted him about the holes in his story, Brian offered rehearsed shrugs and soft denials. Nothing about his demeanor matched the gravity of the situation. Nothing resembled the panic of a man whose wife had simply vanished into thin air on the first morning of a new year. By this point, investigators weren't just suspicious. They were alarmed. Something was deeply wrong in the Walshe home, and the husband, who claimed to be confused and worried, knew far more than he was willing to say. The line between concern and deception had been crossed, and each lie he told revealed a shadow behind him, one that was widening with every new discovery. The police had only begun peeling back the layers of Brian's story, but soon they would uncover the darkness buried beneath his calm exterior, a darkness far more chilling than anyone expected, a darkness that would make the truth impossible to ignore. The darkness surrounding Ana's disappearance deepened on the day investigators stepped into the Walshe home. What they found there didn't whisper suspicion. It screamed it inside the basement. The quiet was unsettling, thick with a kind of dread that clung to the walls. It was the sort of silence that feels staged, as if the house itself was trying too hard to pretend everything was normal. Then the officers saw it, a small smear on the concrete floor, just a hint of red, barely noticeable until you looked closely. Blood, not enough to suggest an accident, not enough to explain away as a minor cut or spill, but enough to signal that something violent had occurred in the place where Ana should have felt safest, enough to send a chill rushing through the room. Nearby, they found a knife, its blade stained and damaged, as though it had been used in a struggle, as though it had made contact with something it should never have touched. The metal was bent, dented, wrong, telling its own silent, horrifying story. And that was only the beginning. When detectives began reviewing surveillance footage and receipts, the pieces of a nightmare began to fall stubbornly, painfully into place. They saw Brian, hours after claiming he never left home, walking into several stores, not to buy groceries, not to buy supplies for his children, but to buy things no grieving husband should ever need: large tarps, buckets, mops, heavy-duty trash bags, tape, protective coveralls, and cleaning chemicals. But perhaps the most chilling part wasn't what he bought. It was the way he moved. Calm, unhurried, like a man running errands on a normal day, like someone carrying out a plan he'd already thought through. Investigators dug further. They seized devices, searched histories, pieced together digital fragments that revealed thoughts darker than anyone imagined, searches that no innocent person should ever make, searches that felt like a window into the mind of someone preparing for something monstrous, searches like how long before a body starts to smell, how to dispose of a human body, how to dismember, how to clean blood, what's the best way to stop DNA from being found. Each query was more chilling than the last, each one a blow to the fragile hope that Ana might still be alive, each one a glimpse into a nightmare that investigators were now forced to confront in real time. The more they uncovered, the more suffocating the horror became. It wasn't just evidence, it was a roadmap, a sequence of steps followed with precision, a chillingly clinical checklist executed in the shadows of an unsuspecting suburban home. And the most heartbreaking part? Ana's body had not been found. There was no place to mourn, no place to lay flowers, no place for her children to ask why their mother never came back. All investigators had were traces: blood on the floor, a broken knife, chemical burns on surfaces where someone had tried too hard to erase the past. But horror leaves fingerprints, and no amount of bleach could wipe away the truth forming in front of them. Whatever happened in that house, Ana had not simply vanished. She had not walked away. She had not taken a flight or caught a rideshare or left of her own free will. Something terrible had unfolded within those walls. Something violent, something deliberate, something irreversible. And with every new discovery, the shadows around Brian Walshe grew darker, heavier, more undeniable. The truth was no longer hiding. And soon, investigators would uncover the motive behind it all. One that was as disturbing as the crime itself. Brian wasn't just a husband with inconsistencies in his alibi. He wasn't just a man who failed to report his wife missing. He was someone with a past stitched together by deceit, manipulation, and a long trail of hidden fractures. Fractures that had been widening long before Ana disappeared. Years before Ana vanished, Brian had been convicted of a federal art fraud scheme. He had forged and sold fake Andy Warhol paintings, a crime that unraveled his reputation and placed him under strict federal monitoring. In the weeks leading up to Ana's disappearance, pressure had been building around Brian like a tightening vice. His legal troubles were reaching a breaking point, and sentencing for his federal fraud case loomed over him like a shadow he could not escape. Financial collapse was no longer a distant possibility. It was staring him directly in the face. Meanwhile, Ana was thriving. Her career was blooming. Her independence was growing. She was traveling frequently, managing major properties, forging connections in Washington, D.C. And beneath her rising success, she was reportedly confiding fears, small ones at first, then larger, about the man waiting at home. Whispers of strain in their marriage turned into quiet warnings she shared with a few trusted friends. She had begun planning her future more boldly. She wanted change. She needed peace. Something in her had shifted, and she was no longer hiding it. To someone like Brian, whose identity was built on control, whose self-worth was precariously tied to feeling needed, this shift may have felt like betrayal. Or worse, abandonment. And then came the allegation prosecutors later pointed to with chilling clarity: jealousy. Not the subtle kind, not the fleeting kind, but the consuming, paranoid jealousy of a man who believed he was losing the one person he depended on most. Rumors of an affair, whether real or imagined, were enough to ignite a storm inside him, a storm fueled by insecurity, fear, and a growing resentment of Ana's success. But jealousy wasn't the only crack in the foundation. There was the life insurance, the legal fees, the debts, the looming prison sentence, the reality that Ana, the family's primary breadwinner, was the one holding everything together financially. If she left him, emotionally, legally, financially, he would lose everything. The home, the stability, the fragile image he clung to, even the ability to support himself. Investigators began to piece together a psychological profile that felt disturbingly logical in its darkness. A man drowning in legal trouble. A man terrified of losing control. A man dependent on a woman who was ready to reclaim her life. A man cornered by consequences he could no longer outrun. To someone already fractured, already desperate, that combination could feel catastrophic. And then there were the searches. Cold, methodical, not the panic flailing of a man reacting to an accident, but the calculated steps of someone preparing for a decision he had already made long before New Year's morning. The timing, the planning, the purchases. Everything pointed to intention, not impulse. Even experts who later examined the case noted the chilling pattern of escalation. They spoke about narcissistic collapse, when a person whose identity relies on control and admiration feels that control slipping away. They spoke about the psychology of desperation, where financial ruin and fear of humiliation intertwine into something explosive. They spoke about possessiveness disguised as love, the belief that if a partner dares to leave, the only way to regain power is through violence. To them, Brian's actions did not appear spontaneous. They appeared calculated, predetermined, driven by a mind spiraling into a place where logic twisted into something unrecognizable. The world watched as the story moved from the shadows of the Walshe home into the harsh, fluorescent-lit reality of the courtroom. Brian Walshe, once calm and measured, now faced a weight of scrutiny in a way no charm, no carefully rehearsed explanation could soften. In November 2025, Brian entered a plea that shocked some and confirmed the worst fears of many. He admitted to misleading investigators and to disposing of and dismembering Ana Walshe's remains. Yet, even with these grim confessions, he denied killing her. He did not plead guilty to murder. He did not surrender to the gravity of the act everyone now understood had occurred behind closed doors. His admission created a chilling dichotomy. He acknowledged involvement in the aftermath, how he handled the body, the cleanup, the concealment, but refused to claim responsibility for the moment that truly mattered, the moment Ana's life ended. The courtroom became a theater of tension, where every piece of evidence, every digital footprint, every word spoken carried enormous weight. Prosecutors meticulously laid out the timeline, the purchases of cleaning chemicals, the surveillance footage contradicting his statements, and the internet searches that painted a horrifying mental image of a man planning methodically for death and concealment. Each revelation sent waves through the gallery. Friends and family of Ana sat in silence, their grief palpable, their disbelief etched across every face. How could someone they knew, someone who lived in the same house, commit such acts and then stand before them calmly, denying the ultimate crime? Brian's defense, in contrast, painted a starkly different picture. Ana had suffered an unexpected death, they claimed. Panic had overtaken him. Fear had driven him to conceal what had happened, to make choices he now admitted. But murder, they insisted, was never his intent. But for the jury, for the investigators, for everyone watching, the evidence whispered something else. It whispered about premeditation. It whispered about obsession. It whispered about control, jealousy, and a dark meticulousness no ordinary panic could explain. The trial revealed just how far the psychological fissures in Brian's life had extended. He had built a facade of normalcy, a veneer of a husband and father, while beneath it lay a torrent of fear, envy, and anger that exploded in the worst imaginable way. And as the courtroom drama continued, the public and Ana's children were forced to confront a stark reality. The full story of what happened that New Year's morning may never be entirely clear, even as the evidence painted a portrait of calculated destruction and unimaginable betrayal. Yet, the absence of Ana's body left prosecutors with a challenging task. The crime, as horrifying as it was, relied heavily on circumstantial evidence, expert testimony, and the digital and physical traces Brian left behind. Every search query, every receipt, every lie told to investigators became a weapon in the courtroom, carving a path toward justice, while simultaneously keeping the full truth tantalizingly out of reach. The community, friends, and family lived in suspended grief. Ana's children, now growing up without their mother, faced a life forever marked by tragedy. Her friends struggled to reconcile the woman they knew with the horror of what had been done. Neighbors and local residents, once accustomed to the quiet rhythm of suburban life, were forced to confront the unsettling reality that evil can hide behind ordinary facades, behind smiles and polite greetings. For Brian, the stakes could not be higher. A conviction for first-degree murder would mean life in prison, possibly without the chance of parole. Lesser convictions, such as improper disposal of a body or misleading investigators, carried significant jail time, but would leave unanswered the most haunting question. Did he end Ana's life, or did fate intervene in a way he now refused to acknowledge? Legal experts and psychologists analyzing the case have highlighted the tension between admission and denial. Brian's acknowledgement of disposal and dismemberment, contrasted with his denial of murder. It is a contradiction that complicates the pursuit of justice, leaving the courtroom, the public, and Ana's family suspended in an emotional limbo. Outside the courthouse, the questions linger. How did a man so close, so trusted, descend into acts of such calculated horror? Could the signs of his unraveling have been noticed earlier? Were the warnings in plain sight, or were they hidden behind the veil of domestic normalcy? The case of Brian Walshe is more than a trial. It is a mirror reflecting the complexities of human nature. It is a story of love and obsession, of jealousy and control, of ambition and fear colliding in ways that lead to unspeakable tragedy. It is a story that reminds us how quickly the ordinary can turn horrific, how easily trust can be betrayed, and how deeply grief can settle into the lives left behind. As the trial continues, no one can say for certain what the final outcome will be. But one truth remains undeniable. Ana Walshe's life ended too soon. Her story forever etched into the collective consciousness as a haunting reminder that evil often wears familiar faces. The case leaves lingering mysteries that may never fully resolve. Questions of motive, timing, and intention swirl endlessly, challenging investigators, jurors, and the public alike. And yet, even in the darkest corners of this tragedy, there's an undeniable human truth. The ripple effects of one person's actions can devastate countless lives, leaving a wound that time may never fully heal. For Ana's children, friends, and community, the hope remains that justice, however delayed or incomplete, may bring some measure of closure. And for the rest of us, this story serves as a somber reflection on trust, human fragility, and the terrifying power of secrecy, deceit, and obsession. The world watches, waits, and wonders. Will justice be served? Will the truth ever be fully known? And what lessons lie buried in the shadows of a life ended too soon? If this story left you shocked, disturbed, or simply searching for answers, we want to hear from you. Share your thoughts, theories, or reflections in the comments below. What do you think really happened that night? Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss another true crime story that uncovers the darkest corners of human nature.